Good afternoon. How are you? It's Sunday and I'm out on the trail. It's very comfortable out. I don't know what the temperature is. I would guess 70 something. And there's a very slight breeze, which is quite appreciated. It's very nice. And there's lots going on. I think that we are living in a time when even the most responsible news gatherers seem to be tethered more loosely to disciplined thinking and facts and analysis. I know it's a sweeping declaration, but I think one of the reasons this happens is when you're doing news 24/7 or whatever the number of hours they really are doing it, and you're trying to fill the space and you're trying to add something new to it all the time, don't we have to lose something in terms of precision and originality and even critical thinking? I don't know, I think so. Now, one of the things that I'm interested in, and this may be precise, by the way, is the long-awaited action by Jack Smith, our special prosecutor. Now, the grand jury has not been meeting on Mar-a-Lago, supposedly, for, I don't know, days or weeks. And they are meeting this week. So the question is, they're going to be an indictment, particularly given the recent recording. Now, this kind of itchy thinking approach to a development that some wish to occur has plagued us maybe almost since right after January the 6th. The insurrection. And with each terrible act uncovered, admitted, and viewed by Trump and company, we think, yeah, that's it. Now something's going to happen. And I'm not saying it's unjustified. It's completely unjustified. It was justified 2 years ago. So here we are. So what is the question? The question is, will Black Jack Smith, I like to call him Black Jack because I'm pulling for that to be an accolade rather than to make him look ridiculous because the Attorney General shuts him down and doesn't let him go forward. But putting that aside, I'd like it to be Black Jack Smith. I'd like him to file an indictment this week. I'd like him to be naming the president. And I don't care which of the several crimes he's committed that we all know about and could recite ourselves on the evening news without a teleprompter. But it would be great if this week he was indicted. Now, there are those going out on a limb, and in my opinion, and I don't think they have any sources that tell them this, and say, this is it, this is the week, it's going to be an indictment. And I'd like to comment on it if there is. But I don't know that there's going to be one. And so that's number one on our how closely tethered are we to facts and knowledge of what will happen. And I think the answer is quite attenuated. Now, in another category, we have signs of how we're approaching the presidential season. And by this I mean that the networks are looking at ways to prepare and arrange to cover best the primaries and the presidential sweepstakes, and to do it in a way that will get more eyes to their coverage than others. And I think the more they're tethered to fact and discipline, the more attention they'll get. Now, I do favor MSNBC, have as long as I can remember now, because I think they really get at it. And so it's interesting that we have at NBC, MSNBC is going to, Chuck Todd is moving out of his position on the Sunday talk show, and others are moving in. And he said he's doing it because he's been taking this heavy load for a long time. And you can be assured that a presidential campaign is going to be a real backbreaker. And I remember before the last election when there were things as green rooms, which is where you were before you went on the air, talking to a couple of the correspondents who were going to cover this president or the other president, and then if they won, to be with him. And that was true of the person who was assigned to follow Biden on the campaign trail. And I've lost track of him, but I assume he's somewhere in the in the White House skirmishing around when there's a news break. So Chuck Todd is moving on from that show, and he's going to still be there contributing, and I think we'll see other changes elsewhere. So we're now approaching the season in earnest, and I say this in part because I'm watching Garland to see if he folds. So this week, finding out whether or not there is an indictment or anything, and we have another one of these, oh, it didn't happen, that would be discouraging. This is a time where we should be fishing or cut bait. And if we have the evidence we say we have, man, fish, go, let's do it. Now, there are other things going on. To say in an amusing way that Rudy and Trump could dress and drag each of them in Tennessee is one way of saying that a judge in Tennessee said you can't have these laws against going around in drag. They are merely efforts to impermissibly chill free speech, First Amendment rights. And so he's vacated and declared unconstitutional the law in Tennessee. So Rudy and Trump, why don't you go there and do your act like we've seen before. In the category of how we approach the presidential elections, I'm curious about the widely announced investigation of Senator Menendez that was all over the Post today. And the reason that's interesting to me is, well, first of all, they went after Senator Menendez years ago, and they came up wanting, meaning they had a hung jury, and then he won re-election. So my question is, does this have anything to do with the presidential election and the Senate positions? And the Senate positions are up in 2024, and we're going to be wrestling for who ends up in the Oval Office and who ends up in the Senate and who ends up in the House. It's going to be a big deal election. So taking out the senator from New Jersey with the powerful seniority he's obtained could make sense. Also, and I have no reason to believe any of it's true, and I don't know it yet, but there may be nothing to this investigation. That's why you're not supposed to talk about investigations, maybe. But if you find out about it and you're a journalist and it's confirmed, investigation of a U.S. senator in a powerful state is big news. And he's the chair of a foreign relations committee. So this is not small stuff. So there's that. In the category of kind of sweet and deserved news is the fact that Jamie Raskin, who, as you may know, was very active in the House proceedings involving the impeachment of Trump. He did an outstanding job. He did this after his own son had committed suicide. He's played an important role in the January 6th committee. And then he discovered that he had cancer, and he fought it like a champion. And luckily, he's been very careful about these things, that is to monitor his own health. And so they say he's okay. And because Ben Cardin has left the U.S. Senate seat, there's an opening, something that happens, well, some might say anything from 0 to 30 years. You just never know when a Senate seat's going to open up. And so people are encouraging him as a logical candidate to run for the Senate. There are other people, and they're all friends because they're all people who've served together in Maryland. So I sort of have him as an emotional favorite. I mean, the content of the man, the courage of the man, what he's done for the country. If there is a better man qualified to be the U.S. Senator from Maryland, you'd have to be pretty close to this guy, because I just don't see it. I'm not saying anything negative about anybody else. This fella exceeds in terms of personal soul and professional judgment and the power to persuade, that sure wins him an opportunity to run for the Senate, in my opinion. Now, for those of us who could find all the craziness that's going on a day-to-day basis bearing down on us, there was a nice spread today showing paintings of Van Gogh and John Singer Sargent. And so make sure while we're watching the evil that's uncovered on almost a daily basis in a variegated manner across a landscape of categories, that you take care of your own soul. So play that classic tune that you like. Read that poem you haven't read in a while. Look at a Van Gogh oil, or whomever might be your favorite artist. Look at John Singer Sargent, even though he did a profile of Teddy Roosevelt. By the way, that painting's one of my favorites. And you look at Sargent's portraits and you say, I wish he would do one of me. And that's the one I want people to think of me as, the way John Singer Sargent would do it. He had such a gorgeous ability. So, mix the good with the bad, the fun with the serious, your responsibilities to the nation with the preservation of yourself, good thinking, comfortable living as best you can, and hug the people that you love. So that's it for me on this Sunday from my Cathedral of Trees, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.